long last, we finally got the second to last major update of this year. Update Firebirds. And I can confidently say that it definitely brings new stuff. Today we're gonna look over all of that stuff and see on a scale from 1 to holy fuck how terrible this update actually is. First we're going to take a look at all the new eye candy / vomit that has been introduced this update. We didn't get any new maps, instead we got a complete visual overhaul of the existing map, Abandoned Factory. And I have to admit, it looks pretty good. Then of course we got a ray tracing added, with much better shadows and reflections, but it's extremely heavy for a negligible visual improvement. I would only recommend using ray tracing if you're either making a cinematic or just have an absolute monster of a PC. We also got motion blur, but yeah, I would just leave that off. The rest of the changes are pretty nice actually. Jets get new afterburner effects. A new vapor effect has been added to jets as well. And fire and spark effects for all types of vehicles have been improved. Mud and snow on ground vehicles have also been improved. The desert sand effect is now way more subtle and dusty, which I really like. And the snow also looks a lot better, with the snow now actually having a reasonable placement on top of the vehicle. There are also some new snow camos for certain top tier vehicles, but they all have to be purchased with golden eagles, which is just incredibly lame. I'll point them out individually later on. For the rest, there are some UI changes, the settings look different, and the player card has been completely overhauled, now looking like a mobile game as well. Like the test drives for tanks, test flights have been improved as well. All locations have been updated, and you can now pick different locations, as well as spawn height and enemies that will now respawn on death, like in the test drive for ground vehicles. Airfields in-game have also been updated for modern aircraft, which look very nice, but apparently they're now much more dangerous to belly land on, especially at high speeds. On one hand, I like this change, as it does encourage players to properly land their aircraft more, but doing that in heavily damaged aircraft will now be even more difficult. The creator Cadwerfer has a more detailed video about this, if you're interested, and I'll leave a link in the description. Cars and trains on maps now have physics and can be interacted with. Cars will get crushed underneath your tracks, and trains can be pushed or towed. And this might be my favorite change this update. Other existing maps also got a lot of minor changes in terrain, damage models for certain terrain features have been improved, and spawn detection zones have been fixed on Sun City and Karelia. Another change that sounds promising is the rework of night battles. One of the main complaints was that the flares were still up, meaning it wasn't really nighttime, and they have been removed. But it's still fucking bright. It's not, I would not call this nighttime. However, the night vision modification of all vehicles have been removed and are now automatically applied when purchasing a vehicle. However, this not only doesn't count for thermals, but vehicles with thermals do not get night vision at all until they have thermals researched. Meaning the night vision change only applies to like half of the vehicles in question. Radar threat identification has been simplified for certain aircraft, i.e. made way worse. Instead of naming the specific vehicle on your radar, it will now, for instance, just say fighter or SPAA. Too bad cast players. Wings on aircraft now break faster at high speeds as well. Again, too bad cast players. In return, however, a ton of aircraft get new or improved ordnance options, with the most notable being the F-16C, F-16AM, and JAS-39C getting the new GBU-39 glider bombs. Naval has also gotten some reworks. Binoculars have been repositioned on all ships, now being in the center. Damage indicators are now much more detailed and precise. And in arcade, range finding and targeting now goes faster. Another change I do really like are the new additions to gun sight customization. The range scale can now be dragged horizontally, and you can add shell name or just the shell type to your sight, but they don't fully work. And custom made sights are now much easier to manage and can be deleted. Some of these things should have been in the game when the custom gun sights were added, but I digress. You can now replay shots fired in live games to see that, yes, that enemy shot was in fact complete and utter bullshit. Shells with the ability to radio fuse, like the Abrams' M830A1, now have to manually switch between direct impact or radio fuse. I don't know how console players can keep up with all these keybinds, man. They only have like 5 buttons. For the aforementioned Abrams shells and the likes, it really doesn't change anything. It just That's another keybind. But other shells like the T90 Ace HE shell or those of certain leopards have been affected as well. Meaning with these shells you can now use your laser rangefinder without setting the fuse, which is really nice. A completely new addition are placeable ammo boxes for certain vehicles. Specifically anti-air, tank destroyers of any kind, and ATGM vehicles like the M901 or IT1 can place these boxes a minute after spawning, and contain the same amount of ammo you spawned in with. Infantry fighting vehicles like the Marder or BMP-2, or vehicles with barrel-launched missiles, like the MBT-70 or any Russian main battle tanks, do not get these ammo boxes. Only dedicated ATGM carriers. These boxes can be replaced, but when fully depleted cannot be replenished. They cannot be used by teammates, only yourself, but enemies and yourself can destroy the box. I think this mechanic will be most useful for anti-air vehicles that often have trouble getting to capture points and, surviving. For certain tank destroyers that can carry limited ammo, this will be useful as well. And the ATGM carriers will also appreciate them. But I do not like these people, so whatever. Now, with all the universal changes out of the way, let's have a look at each nation and what new stuff they got. Starting with the US, and the poster boy for this update, the F-117 Nighthawk. Sitting at a BR of 10.0 for mixed battles and 8.7 for air, as a squadron vehicle. For some reason. Okay, here is my theory on why it's a squadron vehicle. Now, this might surprise some of you, but Gaijin really likes money. So they made the Nighthawk a squadron vehicle so players can instantly buy it for over 7,000 golden eagles, and Gaijin can still fetch money for it, without giving players the ability to complain that it's locked behind a paywall. Make of that what you will. Back to the Nighthawk itself. It gets 2 slots for several air-to-surface weapons, and that's it. This thing has 0 weaponry against aircraft and no countermeasures to speak of, not even a machine gun of any kind. This is a CAS aircraft solely. This aircraft is definitely more stealthy, being much harder to lock onto for both anti-air and other aircraft, but you still can definitely get shot down, even by missiles. The new tech tree aircraft for America is the F-15E, sitting at a BR of 12.7 for ground and 13.7 for air, in the bomber line. This variant gets more air-to-surface ordnance compared to previous versions, including the new GBU-39 glider bombs, and is slightly faster. America also gets 2 new AAs for low tier. The first one is the T-77E1 at 3.7, a prototype based on the chassis of the M24 Chaffee, equipped with 6 50 cals. Fun fact about this thing, the glass on top of the turret do not count as armor, meaning the vehicle is technically an open-top vehicle. Meaning that, though not very easily, it can get overpressured by very small high explosive shells. The other AA is the Canadian Skink, copied directly from the British tech tree. America also gets the USS Bagley, a 4.0 destroyer with 4 turrets, each with a 5-inch gun, though 2 of them are completely open. This ship is considerably faster than other US ships around this battle rating, however. For the rest, there are some other nice changes, like the OH-58D getting a detailed cockpit. Cold War era AAs have received updated crew models. Both versions of the M1128 Striker now have their autoloader modeled, and the T1E1 with the 90mm now has volumetric armor. All M60A1s, including the Italian one, have their reverse gear noticeably increased to match that of the M60A3, though the A2 still has the transmission. Additionally, late American vehicles have received a new deforming winter camo based on this one, though again you can only get it by buying it. Germany gets a new premium aircraft, the Bundeswehr Su-22 M4 WTD-61, being virtually identical to the Tech Tree one, but now costing $70. For the ground tree we get the Lux A2, a lightly armored amphibious armored car, sitting at 7.3. It gets the same 20mm as the Marder, with APDS, and has 2 drivers, allowing the vehicle to go up to 90 km per hour in both forwards and backwards. It's a pretty unique vehicle, but also pretty cancer. I do, however, really like all the small markings on the vehicles. Though in the news page it was also shown with license plates, but in the game they have been removed for some reason. I still really like all the markings though, do that more please. Germany also gets a new AA, the Soviet OSA AK, at 10.3 with a total of 6 surface-to-air missiles. However, now we have to talk about one of the most frustrating changes this update, affecting all Leopard 2s in the game. You know how one of the most frustrating things about NATO tanks in this game is that they can't aim backwards over their own engine deck? And how this has been one of the main complaints about NATO tanks? Yeah, Gaijin's response was to make it 5 times fucking worse, for no reason. And yes, technically it is accurate to real life, but is that really reason to add it? And players have been complaining about it for so long, when you disregard realism in a ton of other ways. The Stukas have also received an updated cockpit, and there's a new deforming winter camo for the Leopards. Again, paid.
Fuck you!
The other main star of the show is the brand new Su-34 for the Russians, sitting at a BR of 12.7 or 13.3 for air, with the ability to single-handedly carry more explosives than the entire Russian military currently has. Russia also gets a new helicopter, the Mi-8 AMT-SH-VN, being more maneuverable than its predecessor and having better ordnance options, but now sitting at 11.0. For ground we don't have much interesting. We get the Object 140, a $60 8.3 premium. I think the closest thing we have is a T-10M. The Object has the same 14.5mm machine guns, a very similar main gun but with a faster reload, and having slightly less armor but being more maneuverable. I don't think this thing is worth it at all. If you really want a premium at this BR range, I still think the T-55 AM1 is a far better option. We also get the OSA AKM, the same as the German ones. For naval we get the PR-253L, a 1.7 gunboat with two 45mm guns and being quite big but very slow. The BB-1 gets an update to its cockpit model, as well as all variants of the Su-2, and the new KV-7 gets an armor increase on its front and sides for some reason as well. Britain gets a new top tier jet as well, the Tornado GR4, having better countermeasures than the GR1, as well as finally getting some air-to-air capabilities in the form of AIM-9Ms. Britain also gets the most modern version of the Hind, the South African Super Hind, as a 10.3 squadron vehicle. Apart from the huge S20mm, I don't believe it gets much special, but it does look fucking dope. For ground, Britain gets the FV-107 Scimitar, taken directly from the famous British TV show, The Grand Tour, starring James May. It gets the same 30mm autocannon as the Warrior, but now only sits at 7.7. Britain also gets a copy of the Canadian Ram 2 in the form of a premium, as well as an Indian version of the OSA AK. For naval, Britain gets the HMS Repulse, being faster and having stronger guns than the Marlborough, but being less armored. The FE-4005 is now 10 tons lighter and has somehow been given an even fucking worse gun sight, and the camo netting on the Challenger 2 TES and the premium OES have been updated and look very sexy. Japan gets a new premium aircraft, the 9.7 AV-8S, in a $60 pack. Very, very similar to the British Premium Harrier, but gets more air-to-surface options, but loses the SRAMs. For ground we get the ICV, also at 9.7. It is extremely similar to the existing RCV squadron vehicle, but actually gets a crewless turret compared to the RCV, which just gets spall liners instead. The ICV does lose the funny camera, however. Lastly for Japan we get the JDS Murasame, a 4.3 destroyer with 3 5-inch guns, 4 3-inch guns and 6 torpedoes. For China we get a new modification of the French Mirage 2000, with, as far as I could find, just having less ordnance options. We get a premium Pakistani Mi-35M as a $50 pack for 10.7. It's almost identical to the regular Russian one, just slightly faster. For ground we do get a bit more of a unique vehicle though, BLZ-05. It's a 90s artillery piece with the usual explosive round, HEVT round and a laser, but it also gets a pretty unique SEP round. But I don't know how useful that 166mm of ban is going to be at 7.7. For the rest, the OH-58D gets a D-dot cockpit, same as the US one, and we get new, much more modern looking number decals. These will also not replace the old ones, which is pretty damn nice. For Italy, we get the Romanian OSA AKM as well. We get the premium MS-444, a 2.7 torpedo boat for 1300 golden eagles, equipped with 3 20 mils and 2 torpedoes. For blue water, we get the RN Francesco Carracciolo, a 6.7 battleship with 4 380mm guns and a plethora of smaller guns. Compared to other Italian ships, it's significantly better armored, but loses top speed. For the rest, the A109 EOA-2 gets a detailed cockpit. In short, Italy gets fucking nothing. Again, France also gets a new Mirage, the 2000D RMV, sitting at 12.0 or 12.7 for air. It gets better air-to-surface options and 2 Magic 2 air-to-air missiles compared to the R1. To celebrate French naval forces now being available to everyone, the Dunkirk battleship has been added at 6.7. It gets 8 330mm cannons, all in a forward-facing configuration. Compared to the other French ships, it's slightly better armored but gets a significantly better top speed. We also, very much still, did not get the Benelux ground subtree. The only thing we got were a bunch of Leopard 2s, the 2A4, 2A5 and A6, all being identical to the German counterparts apart from getting better camos. These things don't even get Dutch voice lines. And as a Dutchman myself, I really hope we get anything at this point, to be honest. For the rest, both ARL 44s now have neutral steering. The Leclerc and Leclerc S2 have been moved to rank 8, meaning that they now get a stock Sabo. The Vexter 105 and AMX 40 have been moved to rank 7 to take their place. The French also get a new winter camo for top tier, and the Dutch Leos and CV90 as well, which, yes, is different from the German one. Sweden gets a couple new jets, the JA37DI and the JA37DI F21, with the only difference between them is that the F21 is an $80 premium. They both sit at a BR of 11.7 or 13.0 and have better and more air-to-air ordnance compared to the JA37D. Sweden also gets a new squadron vehicle, the BMP-2MD at 8.7. It's a BMP-2 with thermals, but loses the ATGM. It doesn't even get the AP FSDS like the BMP-2M. I don't know how this thing is 8.7, but it's an autocannon vehicle, so I am not complaining. Last and probably least, Israel, with 2 half-new vehicles. First being the F-15I Ram at 12.7 or 13.7 for air. It's faster and gets more guided bomb options compared to the American counterparts. And then there's the Sabra Mark I, another M60 base tank, very similar to the Makach 7C, with comparable armor, but it gets a better AP-FSDS shell and has a laser warning system. That's it. That was everything for Israel. This is yet another update with a handful of nice changes and additions, and a bucket load of meh to terrible ones. I don't know when or if Gaijin is going to change this, but they really need to. Yet again, Gaijin just added mostly pointless stuff, like new ray tracing, motion blur, and pointless UI changes. All the while, the CAS problem has not been addressed and now has only been made worse with stealth aircraft. We are still not seeing any new game modes. Top tier is an absolute mess. Naval is still barely playable as well, and the Benelux subtree has been delayed again. Even in the teaser for this update, they showed stuff like the Patriot missiles and better voice lines for tanks, so Gaijin knows what we want, but none of this we actually get again. I really want this game to be good, but I'm slowly losing hope it ever will be. 3 out of disappointing.